Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Port Richards Cafe, Sachse Senior Residential Care Homes, ATD Painting, and Performance Food Group. Port Richards Cafe, Plano's oldest restaurant since 1973. They are open daily from 5:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., serving the three most important meals of the day: breakfast, lunch, and dessert. It is true Texas home-style cooking made with love and grit. That is Port Richards Cafe, located off of Avenue K in Plano. This podcast is also brought to you by Sachse Senior Residential Care Homes, senior care at its best with a family atmosphere. They specialize in making their facilities as close to a home living experience as possible. Not only that, there are no move-in fees and there are no visitation restrictions. They are located near I-635 in Marsh Lane in Dallas, right near Carrollton. For more information, you can call 469-400-7650. That is Sachse Senior Residential Care Homes. And now, let's podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor of Star Local Media, and I am being joined by Taylor Ragland and Devin Hassan. And gentlemen, let's talk Week 11 of high school football season. As is the case at this juncture of the week, we're going to preview 5 of the marquee matchups in our neck of the woods. A pretty solid week, though, as far as Game of the Week candidates. Had to leave some pretty quality matchups off the 5-game ballot. But nevertheless, thank you to everybody who voted on the Game of the Week poll at our website, starlocalmedia.com. At the end of the day, though, we kind of had an inkling going into this one that everybody might be playing for second place, given that one particular game was going to be on the poll, and sure enough, that game did not disappoint. Friday, 7 o'clock, Homer B. Johnson Stadium. The best thing going in Garland ISD football right now, Sachse versus Rowlett. Devin, was there ever a doubt that this is what we'd be talking about on Wednesday?
Not at all. I mean, these teams may not win the state championship this year, but when it comes to social media and rallying that student body and those fans out behind a voting cause, may not be a better team in the state or school in the state.
I was like, what kind of game would it take to dethrone a Sachse versus Rowlett game in any sort of a Game of the Week poll? Would it have to be like Allen versus Katy or something like that? And maybe they were able to, like, Kyler Murray was granted like another year of high school eligibility or something crazy like.
You never can tell that, and that's just the nature of social media, though. It just sometimes it catches like wildfire, and maybe the Allen Katy game catches on, maybe it doesn't. It's so hard. Even you would expect a school like Allen with 6,500 students could just rally the troops at any time. But again, then you have these communities, and we saw it earlier this season, even with Sunnyvale. Little Sunnyvale won our Game of the Week because it wasn't just the students that were voting; it was the parents. It was that community that was so proud of that school. So I don't know. That's an intriguing question.
It's tough because this week they won with 350. The second place was usually 250 or whatever the second place game have. I think it was Poteet and McKinney North. Usually that's good enough. You got it all locked up, but not when Rowlett's on the board in Sachse.
Yeah, it is a beast like few others that the Game of the Week polls encountered. So nevertheless, let's discuss this game because, like I said, this is for let's say the last 3-4 years or so since Garland ISD became its own district. This has been kind of your main event, year in year out between Sachse and Rowlett. And sure enough, Friday's game carries significant stakes, as has been the case in recent years. So I guess, before we get into the actual game itself, this is a very unique rivalry. So just, Devin, just in the years that you've been around this rivalry, just talk a bit about the significance of Sachse versus Rowlett.
Well, Rowlett opened in 1996, and they developed an instant rivalry with Lakeview because they were right across the lake. Now it's the newest school. And then when Sachse opened in 2002 and started playing sports in 2004, that became the instant rivalry. There was no George Bush back then, but now they're just, basically 5 miles down the road on George Bush. And the unique thing about Sachse is probably about half their kids live in Rowlett. Yeah. It's just the way that the attendance zones are structured in Garland ISD. So, a lot of these kids grow up going to the same elementary school, maybe going to the same middle school. They certainly play on the same Pee Wee teams, the same middle school teams. Some of them even, I know cases where they live in the same neighborhood. Yeah. It's just that with the way the attendance zone is structured, it's one side of the street goes to Rowlett and one side goes to Sachse. So they literally interact every day, every week. And like I say, it's always been a big game, but especially, Rowlett has made 14 straight playoff appearances. Once Sachse kind of got to that level in 2010 and became a perennial playoff team of their own, that rivalry took on heightened importance. And certainly these last 3 years, when it's basically been a de facto district title game, they played basically an 8th game of the season in the last 2 years. But this one certainly being in week 11, it's those fan bases are excited.
There's also something special when you get a rivalry game in week 11 too, just as far as especially for two teams that are bound for the playoffs, just for momentum's sake. So looking at these two teams kind of on paper, Rowlett comes in with one of its better regular season records. Just in recent program history, they're 7-1, 5-1 in district play. Sachse has overcome that 0-3 start to the season and have won, I believe, 6 straight?
Yes.
6 straight, so they're 6-0 in district, 6-3 overall in the season. So let's start with Sachse. Sachse was a team that we weren't really entirely sure what to make of them at the start of the year, coming off the high of their 2017 campaign. They scheduled a very difficult slate with Capel, Euless Trinity, Plano East. They went 0-3 in non-district, and they really struggled with some consistency at the quarterback position. They had to play, I believe, 3 different quarterbacks within the first 3 games of the season, which that right there says all you need to know about the struggles that they were going through. But they seemed to find a bit of an answer there midway through the season from an unlikely spot with shifting receiver Derek Rose to the position. He then goes down with an injury after 2.5 starts. So, what do you kind of make of Sachse right now, just where they're at right now, as they've at least righted the ship more or less, but I guess in that district, we'll kind of have a better idea of just how improved they are when they face a team like Rowlett.
Well, and it has been a series of adjustments because, Sachse has been fortunate in the sense that it's not often you get back-to-back Division I quarterbacks. Yeah. Some schools, some programs actually can roll that out, but it's unique. They had Kent Meyer starting for 2 years, who rewrote the record book, and then after he graduated and went on to Utah State, Jalen Baden takes the reins and has a 3-year career that rewrites all of Kent Meyer's records before he goes on to Mississippi State. And they just didn't have that same caliber of player, ready to step in. That's no knock on the quarterbacks they have. It's just, D1 talent didn't just fall off
trees. These are the best quarterbacks in program history.
And so, like you say, they've had to use 4 different quarterbacks. Part of that is due to injuries. 3 of them, there was concussion problems, there was shoulder problems. There's been all sorts of issues they've had to overcome, and it's tough to develop a rhythm. When there's a new signal caller out there every day, and the quarterbacks can't get on the same page as the receivers. So basically, what they decided to do halfway through the season, even before they moved Derek Rose over to that position, was to create an identity, because they, Coach Red Barron said we didn't have one, and so we're going to go back to do some of the things we were doing last year. Go to more of a 2-back set and rely on the running game. It didn't help that they were starting 3 sophomores in the offensive line, so it took some time for them to gel and get going. But that's kind of when they started turning the corner. Albeit some can argue the competition level in 10-6A, take that for what it's will, but they're more, interested in, just how that offense was clicking. And with Miles Nash, Torrey Washington, and KJ Williams, it gives them 3 reliable backs. Miles Nash is a speed guy. You can get him out in the open field. He's a valuable, receiver as well. Torrey Washington is a big play guy as well. Great special teams player, breakaway speed. And KJ Williams, has some speed too, some hidden speed, but he's more of a bruiser. So it gives them kind of 3 different options. It's not just rolling kind of the same back out, just rotating. They do bring different things to the table. They're averaging 206 yards a game on the ground, and that was really when they started kind of turning the corner and getting, like I say, that identity. Derek Rose gave him a lift. He shifted out from the wide receiver position back under center, where he played some as a freshman, because he was able to throw the ball, to Cameron Cromer, to Trent Dean, and Chase Cromer, and. But, whoever ends up taking the snaps on Friday, Sachse feels confident because they have that ground game established, and they think they can rely on that, and that certainly is going to open things up for whoever's throwing the ball. And
they've got one of the better defenses in the area, too, to lean on if need be.
They really do. They've been up front. They've just been phenomenal. That's Hunter Spears, Clark Yarbrough, Ryan Jones, Josh Stafford. They run a deep rotation, defensive line. They'll run 7-8 guys in there. That group is combined for 18 sacks, 70 tackles for loss, and 85 quarterback hurries. And even if they're not recording quote-unquote stats, they're putting the pressure on the opposing quarterback, making them get rid of the ball, disrupting the flow of their offense. And behind them, that is a group. That back 7 is full of playmakers. Bryce Robinson is one of the most active linebackers that you'll see out there. He's their captain. He's their leader. He has a little bit of everything. And you look in the secondary, Braylon Brooks is having not just an all-district type season, he's having an all-state type season. How many players need 8 interceptions in the regular season? In essentially 9 games. 2 of those he's taken back all the way for touchdowns. He's got 10 pass breakups. He's been a lockdown guy. His interceptions have come at big times. I mentioned the 2 pick sixes. Well, he's also had 2 late in games that have sealed victories. When they had to come back against Lakeview a couple weeks ago, a game that they trailed by 2 scores late. They had to score 21 points in the fourth quarter to come back and win that game 49-38. Berlin Brooks had a pick 6 in that game, but he also had an interception in the end zone to seal at the end. So he's come up huge. Micah Buchanan is a ball hawk in the secondary. He can come up and make great plays and run support. He is an interception return for a touchdown early this year. Tim Cherry has a couple picks. Matthew Carter, who was part of that talented stable of running backs last year, has moved over and kind of plays a rover position in that secondary. So, that's the one thing I think I mentioned in Monday's podcast. Sachse's got a good defense, so does Rowlett. Yes. But Sachse's got the edge in playmakers. At least they've shown that so far.
Yeah, it was kind of the expectation coming into the season that Rowlett's defense would be, statistically, there really isn't much separation between them and Sachse, which I don't know if that was expected coming into the year. Just looking at recent performances like them holding Lakeview Centennial, who just mentioned, it's just 7 points. They were really the first team all season to figure out Plano's run game, back in non-district play. But then there's that Wiley game that's just kind of this red herring that just kind of threw everybody off the scent for a moment on Rowlett. But nevertheless, talk a little bit about Rowlett's defense and just the strides that side of the ball has made for the Eagles.
It was a little bit of a surprise because there were so many question marks in their front 7 coming in. They graduated a couple of their defensive linemen and basically their entire linebacking core. And Rowlett has always kind of leaned on that linebacker group. To make plays, but they've had other people step up. Gabriel Tito was a contributor last year who's really elevated his game on the defensive line. Darius Dunlap's another kid that's come on strong. DeModrick Wade was their one holdover at linebacker that kind of stepped into that leadership position. He's their leading tackler. Other guys have stepped up from him, like Xavier Gale. The strength coming in, though, the one proven commodity was in the secondary, and that group has lived up to its billing. Lance Canyon, Jared Wesley, Ennis Henderson, Cameron Miles. That group has done a tremendous job all season long. You mentioned the aberration of Wiley where they gave up 48 points. They haven't given up more than 22 in any other game all season long. And you mentioned that shutting down that Plano high-powered running game. Gonick is some pass-happy teams like Lakeview. That just put 38 up on Sachse the week before and hold them to 7 points. So, that Wiley game kind of makes you scratch your head, but consistently, week in, week out, for the most part, that Rowlett defense has been good.
Because it seems like a team that's equipped for maybe whatever type of game unfolds on Friday that they can. They do have the offense to hang with Sachse if a shootout were to materialize. Plus, they're just as comfortable having to win like a 24-21 style game too.
Well, and I think again that Plano game in particular, but Naaman Forest is one of those grinded out, ball control offenses. South Garland has Jaquarian Turner, who's one of the top running backs in the district. Lakeview has Kamar Wheaton, who's just an electric back, and they've done a good job handling all those guys. And that's why I think when we talked about Sachse's running game, that's one of the 2 interesting matchups is how they matched up with Sachse when they're a 3-headed monster. And the other one we just got through talking about, Sachse's secondary. That's the one element of Rowlett's game that's really come along is the passing game. Chase DePaul last year was kind of thrown into the fire. Preston Weeks got injured late in the season. He came on for the last essentially 2.5 games, but then he missed spring workouts because he was part of the baseball team. So he only got about 5 practices there. So it's been kind of a work in progress. It's been a learning experience. Every week he's grown more and more, and he's really hit his stride. He's thrown for 20 touchdowns this year. 16 of those come in the last 5 games. He's got one of the better 1-2 receiving punches in the area. Jerry Evans is a track guy. He was kind of an established commodity coming in. They knew he was going to be their go-to guy. Antonio Hull had shown promise. He was a district offensive newcomer of the year last year. Again, as Topal kind of figured out what he was doing, Antonio Hull adjusted accordingly. Now he's come on strong. That duo is combined for 15 of the 20 touchdowns they have through the air. So again, against that playmaking Sachse secondary, I'm interested to see how this Rowlett passing offense fares.
As far as just kind of general paths to victory for this game, let's look at Sachse first. What do you feel what needs to go right for Sachse to be able to extend their winning streak over Rowlett?
I think Sachse needs to get off to a good start. This is not the quick strike. We have our possessions last 2 minutes because we moved the ball 80 yards in 4 plays type offense like they've had in the last 5 years. This is a ground-based offense. Not to say they can't make plays through the air, but they would like to chew the clock a little bit. They would like to wear that opposing defense out. And so if they were to fall behind, like say in last year's game where they trailed 35-21 in the fourth quarter, well, they were able to overcome that deficit. I don't know if this offense is geared toward making up a deficit like that. So I think if they can get off to that good start, get the lead, grind that clock, wear Rowlett down a little bit, that'll make a huge difference.
And if you need any sort of precedent, I'd be curious to find out how much time Rowlett has spent trailing all season with the besides the Wiley game, because that does feel like the only time all season where a team has come out and like legit put it on Rowlett from the get-go. They were down 14-0 in the first quarter in that game, including a pick six, and that just seemed to, Wiley will have games like that. They were just in the Plano Allen district these last couple of years, and Wiley would just kind of be under the radar, and then they'd go out and beat Plano 31-3 in the middle of the season. You're like, where the heck did that come from?
Yeah.
So they're capable of performances like that, but at least that seems to be the only time though where Rowlett has had to work out of any serious adversity this season.
And that's true. And Wiley did the same thing to Sachse. They jumped on Sachse early and led a lot of that game before Sachse kind of took control late. But that's a very valid point. Is what happens when Rowlett is in a close game.
Yeah. Kind of sticking with that then, Rowlett, just where do you see kind of their most realistic path to victory in this one?
I think just stick to their game plan in terms of don't try to overextend yourself. I think when you get into a rivalry game like this, sometimes you try a couple different things and it doesn't work out. I think if Rowlett, even if I mentioned Sachse's keys getting out early, I think if they do that, Rowlett just sticks to his game plan. They want to run Chauncey Amos. They want to be two-dimensional. They have to be two-dimensional against that. And that Sachse front is so tough to run on, but at the same time, you got to keep plugging at it. That's what they did last year, and they were able to open some holes in the second half when they were able to take the lead. So stick to the game plan on offense, and again, just contain big plays on defense. This is not the same kind of quick strike Sachse team, but if they're going to bend but don't break type thing, just don't give it the big plays, because that's not what the Sachse offense is known for.
I wonder, this game, fortunately this game is happening in week 11. It feels like this game could have taken place at so many different junctures of the season, and the winner and the projected favorite might be different each time. If this was taking place right at the start of district, Rowlett, man. And then middle of the season, right after that Wiley game, well, I guess advantage Sachse.
Well, and because they've both shown these flashes, 1 week, like I said, Sachse doesn't have the ability to throw the ball downfield. The next week they'll have 3 touchdown passes of more than 50 yards. They have that ability. They just haven't been able to do it consistently. It's the same thing with Rowlett and with in the bad situations. All of a sudden this defense has been dominant, and all of a sudden someone scores 48. Then the next week they hold a good offense to 6 points. So there have been flashes. I mean, you can say that about any team. Yeah. There have been flashes for both, but I think they're both playing their most consistent ball of the season right now, and it should be a great game on Friday.
That being said, who you got?
Speaking of going back and forth a million times, you can say that about every week. You can say that about every hour on the hour as I kind of analyzed and broke down this game. Right now, I have Sachse in a 31-24 type game. Okay. I think I give the edge to them with experience. And the fact that they did play that battle, they're battle tested with that early season, run through Coppell, Trinity, and Plano East. Rowlett, Doug Stevens, he would have loved to have got that game in against Rockwall, just for the test, because they did have a good game against Plano. They handled McKinney Boyd, fairly easily in the opener. But the more tough games you play early on, the better it serves you down the road. And a lot of these Sachse guys had the experience from last year when they went to the regional semifinals, when they fell behind Rockwall in the fourth quarter and had to rally and win that game in overtime, when they fell behind Liverpool Hendrickson by 4 touchdowns and came back in the fourth quarter and nearly tied at the end. A lot of those guys went through those battles, and I think if it's in a close game, as we talked about before, Rowlett has not been in a lot of them. Sachse has, and I think that gives them the slight edge to pull out a one-score win.
The picket line was is on your side as well. I believe this was a 5-1 margin in favor of Sachse. Kendrick Johnson taking the Eagles, but Taylor,
as he is wont to do, man.
As because his family lives in Rowlett, I believe is the tie there.
So Taylor, myself, Justin, Brian, Devin, we were all siding with Sachse, but we shall see. I guess this will be the 3rd straight win for Sachse in this rivalry series.
It was. Rowlett holds the all-time edge 10-4, but Sachse's won 4 of the last 6, including the last 2.
And 18 district games in a row, right? So that math does it.
Yes.
So that is a look at what to expect for our reader-voted game of the week, Sachse versus Rowlett. Once again, this one is Friday, 7 o'clock out at Homer B. Johnson Stadium in Garland. But let's get the perspective from one of the key players in this matchup. Sachse linebacker Bryce Robinson took a chance to chat with Devin earlier today to preview the big game coming up Friday against Rowlett, and we will see what Bryce had to say after a word from the sponsor. Let's take a quick break to talk about ATD Painting. Whether it's painting, staining, carpentry, residential, commercial, interior, or exterior, ATD Painting has you covered. They have 4 locations in the Metroplex, including Plano and Lewisville. You can call 972-694-8888 for more information, or you can visit their website at atdpainting.com. That is ATD Painting. Check it out to see just how affordable professional painting can be. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
Hey y'all, this is Devin Hassan. I'm out at Sachse High School where I'm joined by Sachse star linebacker Bryce Robinson. Bryce, appreciate you taking a couple minutes out of your busy schedule to join us as we continue talking about Game of the Week, which is Sachse at Rowlett, Friday night, 7 p.m. at Homer B. Johnson Stadium. We'll get to some of those stakes in a moment. What I found funny, Bryce, is on Friday night, I was on Twitter actually at a different game, and the Sachse game had not ended, the Rowlett game had not ended, yet the social media was already buzzing about this game with Mustang Nation, with Let Nation. They were already doing a little bit of jawing, a little bit of trash talking. As a player, how hard is it to avoid getting caught up in some of that?
It's not really hard at all. It's just we focus on what we need to do and get the job done on Friday night.
Well, and as far as this rivalry goes, it's kind of one of the newer rivalries in Texas. A lot of the old entrenched ones, you see city versus city, where the entire city rallies around. Y'all's a little bit different in that you're part of the same school district. You neighbor each other. I know a lot of you guys played Pee Wee together, even played middle school together, maybe even live in the same neighborhoods. Would you describe this as a friendly rivalry, or how would you characterize this Rowlett-Sachse rivalry?
I guess you could say it's a little friendly rivalry. Where I live at, I mainly play with people like from Naaman and stuff like that, but a lot of people in the Sachse area, yes. We grew up with people from Rowlett and stuff. So it's very friendly.
Friendly, except for this week.
Except for this week, yes. Except for this week.
Well, you're a 3-year starter, and obviously y'all have enjoyed a lot of success during your sophomore and junior campaigns. Y'all go 23-2. You make it to the regional semifinals for the first time last year. This year, you start off 0-3 against some very good competition, but this is kind of uncharted waters for y'all, your seniors. After that start, what was kind of the mood in the locker room like? And as a senior leader, what did you talk to the team about?
Oh, it was like we don't hang our heads at all. We We just keep on fighting because we knew that the plan was to play tougher teams so we could do better in district and have a better playoff run. So that was not the plan to lose, but plan to play tougher teams.
Yeah, and you think you're a better team for it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
A lot better.
Now, and watching you over the years, you do a little bit of everything on the field. You lead the team in tackles. You're among the team leaders in sacks, tackles for loss. I know you drop back in coverage. But I know you also have responsibility as far as being a leader, being a captain, getting your teammates in line. How do you kind of define your role out there on the defense?
Oh, I'd say I'm a vocal leader. I try to get everybody in their spots, tell the D-line what to do, and once they make a great play, I celebrate with them. If I make a great play, they celebrate with me. So it's no selfishness I got with myself. I'm a team player, and I love when everybody makes plays. It's crazy.
Okay. Well, in addition to bragging rights this week, there's a lot more on the line. I know you guys would love to have that outright district championship. You guys have won 18 straight district games. I know you don't want that streak to end at any time, but especially not to Rowlett. And then there's a matter of playoff seeding. If y'all get that number 1 seed, there's a potential rematch with Plano East there in the first round. Are these factors that y'all talk about, or do you try to downplay it, during the course of the week and just let what comes afterwards?
We don't really like to look forward, so we just focus on this game. But yes, definitely, we don't want to lose at all. We don't want to break our streak, and that's basically it. We just don't look forward.
Yeah. Well, and obviously the task at hand, our game of the week, you guys coming in on a 6-game winning streak. They're 7-1 with just the 1 loss. This game went down to the wire last year, one of the best games in the Metroplex all season long. How do you see this game playing out, and what are the keys to y'all walking out of there at Homer B. Johnson Stadium with a victory?
Oh, it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a tough game from start to finish. And we got to dominate the line of scrimmage, and we got to make big plays when it's time to make big plays. And we just can't let them get going. That's it.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's going to about wrap things up here at Sachse High School. Bryce Robinson, appreciate you jumping on for a few minutes with us.
Thank you.
And now back to the podcast.
Thanks again to Bryce Robinson for taking the time to chat with Devin for our Student Athlete Spotlight, previewing our Week 11 Game of the Week, Sachse versus Rowlett. So let's stick with it. Let's talk about 4 of the other marquee matchups on the docket. Like I said, some worthy selections this week. Had to leave a couple pretty big games off the poll, unfortunately, because there's a 5-game cap. So with all due respect to games like the Crosstown Showdown in McKinney and Little Elm, the Colony, just any other week you probably make it. But some good selections this week, including one for second place in District 7-5A Division 1. This one is on Thursday, 7 p.m. out at McKinney ISD Stadium. Mesquite Poteet against McKinney North. Devin, you've got a school in this race. First off, just to clarify, just kind of what are the playoff ramifications, I guess, as far as this game is concerned?
Poteet comes in at 4-1. McKinney North and Sherman are both 3-2. Poteet controls its own destiny. It's very simple for them. If they win, they're the second seed. McKinney North, if they win, Sherman has to play John Tyler. Yeah. So if they pull that upset, McKinney North upsets Poteet, then we have three-way chaos, and we have point differential come into effect in terms. And I don't see. Even if McKinney North is able to beat Poteet, which I don't think they would, they would essentially have to beat them by 17 to cover that cap. And then the way they do it is first one eliminated, and so you slate them accordingly. Poteet 2, Sherman 3, McKinney North 4. It's assuming they don't blow them out, but I didn't expect Sherman to blow out McKinney North either. So, the most likely scenario, I guess, is if Poteet wins, then McKinney North and Sherman end up tied for that third spot, and then Sherman, by virtue of head-to-head, would be third, McKinney North fourth.
Okay. Where was you? So do you think you foresee Poteet getting the job done in this one? Anything specific that led you to that pick?
I do. I think they're too balanced on offense. They spotted John Tyler at 21-0 lead last week, and then got their game together and really controlled, from that point on, methodically came back, thought they had a miraculous win. Seth McGowan scores with 15 seconds left, but that apparently was too much time to leave for John Tyler, who throws the 49-yard Hail Mary with 1 second left on the clock to win it 48-44. To their credit, McKinney North had their chance against John Tyler as well. That was a 28-25 game. I'm still perplexed by that early season run where they barely, they lose to Wakeland, which wasn't a horrible loss, but
it's a quality Frisco ISD team.
They barely beat Rockwall Heath, who's really struggled this year. And then again, the one that I can't get over is the blowout loss to Sherman, where Sherman just ran all over him. I mean, like 360 yards on the ground, and that's where I think Poteet has the edge. And Seth McGowan is one of the top running backs in the area. He averages nearly 8 yards per carry, 20 touchdowns, over 1,200 yards on the ground. And the difference is Poteet, if they decide to load the box, Dalton Dale can beat you through the air. He threw for 340 yards last week. Cam Lampkin is a dynamic playmaker on the outside. Devin Martin, their 6'5", 250-pound sophomore, there's really no way to stop him. He uses that frame. He's got good speed, and they've really utilized him well, especially as the season has gone on. Lewis Moore, Tristan Golightly, they've got 4 legit targets on the outside to go along with Seth McGowan, and with a quarterback that can get them the ball. I just think that's too much firepower for McKinney North.
As it feels like you've been doing the picket line for a while, it feels like every year there's one or two schools that just we can't figure out as a collective. I mean, I'm sure it's like Frisco ISD has given you nightmares in the past. This year, I think McKinney North is that team for me. I just cannot figure out what the Bulldogs are week to week. So it's probably a good thing for them that I'm picking up Poteet to win this game as well, given my track record of whiffing on McKinney North games. This one was, much like Rowlett and Sachse, this was a 5-1 margin as well in favor of Poteet. The three of us, plus Justin and Brian, we are going with the Pirates. Kendrick Johnson covers McKinney North. He is picking the Bulldogs to pull off the home win, which, I mean, I don't know if it would be an upset. McKinney North, I think, is really, outside of that Sherman game aside, they've proven to be one of the upper tier teams in this district. So.
Yeah, and I don't think they've lost at MIC, have they?
No, they're not. Nope.
So
they're undefeated at
you never know,
Stadium.
Man.
Let's see. Let's shift gears to some Friday action, including District 5-5A Division 1. One of several games in that district that will bear some significance on the playoff picture. This one is Friday, 7 o'clock out at Toyota Stadium. Frisco Independence and Frisco Centennial. Brian Murphy is doing a story on all the tiebreaker nonsense in that district that you can check out on our website, starlocalmedia.com, just to get the skinny on what needs to go right for certain teams games in that, where I believe there's 4 teams that are tied for third place in that district.
Something like that.
For the last 2 playoff spots. Independence and Centennial are among that group. However, I believe that the winner of this game is not guaranteed a playoff berth.
I don't think so, no.
Because it depends on the results of the Wakeland Liberty game and Little Elm the Colony. So it might be off or not between the Knights and Titans. Nevertheless, between this game, if you look at the results, I mean, kind of similar across the board.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of difference between these two as far as common opponents go. I do tend to kind of trust Independence's play a bit more recently versus Centennial, which is riding a 2-game losing streak and then had a squeaker against Heritage. So we'll see. But I ended up siding with the Knights in this one. Taylor, where did you lean?
Man, it was kind of a coin flip, like you said. A lot of results that mirror one another. Centennial with the 48 points given up to Lone Star looks pretty bad to that school this year in that offense, but maybe they figured something out. But with all that said, I went with Centennial. They had some late season magic last year, and I may or may not have gone there.
Yeah,
so.
you're going to pick the Titans.
I'm cashing in my one homer pick on a coin flip, so I don't feel like that's too bad. So we'll see.
And it's a chance for you to pick up a game on the rest of the picket line.
Yeah, there you go.
You are on Lone Wolf Island with Kendrick.
Yeah.
5-1 in favor of Independence. Taylor, you the dissenting vote, taking the Titans. The rest of the staff siding with the Knights. Let's see. Let's shift gears to another Friday game. Scroll down here. The Battle of the Axe. Lewisville at Marcus, Friday, 7 o'clock at Marauder Stadium. I'm a believer in Lewisville. It took another team that was very, very difficult to figure out, just like many of the games in that district.
I was going to say, you were talking about that team, that McKinney North. That was your. I think I've picked against Lewisville every time they've been on the picket line all season long. I picked for Marcus, I think, every time they've been on the picket line, and I pretty much got that wrong. So I just cringed when I saw this game. But I'm with you. How can you? I looked at, again. This is why you can't read too much into early games. But those early results, beating Grand Prairie 24-21. Barely, playing at Arlington Sam Houston. Close. I'm sorry, they lost to Grand Prairie 24-21. Barely beating Arlington Sam Houston. It kind of throws you off the path, but they're a team that's proven they got stronger all year long, playing in that tough district. They lost to Flower Mound in the district opener in a very competitive game.
Oh, yeah.
And
I was going to say, that one looks good now.
And then they've taken care of business since that point. Marcus hasn't. Marcus has in previous years, it seems like. They're kind of a perennial playoff team. But yeah, Lewisville giving up basically 11 points per game in its last 4.
Their defense
I'm on that Farmers bandwagon now.
It's legit, man. You mentioned them losing to Flower Mound. Well, not only were they at one point, they were in control of that game heading into the second half until Flower Mound just mounted what, to hear Justin describe it, just a crazy comeback. So they are kind of I don't know if that was kind of if you play that game 10 times, how much you get that same result. But, Flower Mound and Lewisville is not too far from being undefeated in that district, which who would have thought that at the start of the season? So, yeah, the job that they did last week in beating Hebron, they've already got a win over Capella under their belt. Yeah, I'm all in on the Farmers, and I like them to stay hot against a Marcus team that has just been a bit too inconsistent on the season. And that was rest of the staff is a believer as well. That was a 6-0 clean sweep for Lewisville in the Battle of the Axe. Just for the sake of playoff discussion, Marcus does need a win, obviously, to help its case for the playoffs, but they're also up against it in which they also need Hebron to lose to winless Irving. So a bit of odds are a little bit long for the Marauders, but nevertheless, they got to hold up their end first by taking care of business against the Farmers. So we'll see what happens in the latest installment of the Battle of the Axe out at Marauder Stadium. Let's close this out with a look at probably the game of the week in District 9-6A at the very least. Friday, 7 p.m. at Clark Stadium. Prosper visits Plano Senior. I'll be at this game. Two teams that kind of on paper, or at least as far as just kind of their stylistic build, very similar. Two teams that really thrive on the run game and generating a good block up front. They kind of need that to ignite everything. They're both teams play solid defense, but we've talked about just with what Plano has been able to do with just the role that they've gotten on right now, and just the confidence and the swagger that they're playing with, having had to almost, they're trying to run the table in this challenging home stretch that they've had with these last 4 weeks, and a win by them gets them into the playoffs. Prosper is assured a playoff spot regardless of Friday's outcome. However, their seed, they're going to be in Division 2, so whether it's the high seed or the low seed, that is still up in the air depending on the result. They'll play either Naaman Forest or Wiley in the first first round of the playoffs. I like Plano to stay hot here. I think the renewed sense of identity that this team has been playing with. We think earlier in the season we were mentioning that Rowlett game where just, you saw it. Plano that's not the Plano offense that I'm sure you would envision heading into that game. And they've really, they've just juiced up that offense, got back to playing Plano Wildcats football. And then, granted, it's really tough to extrapolate a whole lot from how any team plays against Allen. Yeah. But the only time I've seen Prosper was last week against Allen, and they gave up 600 plus yards and 472 on the ground. I don't know if Plano can replicate because that offensive line performance by Allen was just something else. I don't know if Plano has the horses to blow Prosper off the ball quite like Allen did, but I know that Plano can run the ball with the best of them in the state, and with the job that Kyron Cumbie and Tylen Hines have been doing running behind that line, it's tough to go against Plano right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Hines and Cumbie, the kind of 1-2 punch, and it's interesting because you key in so much on Cumbie, but then Hines has come into his own so much, even being 2 years younger, that he actually gets most of the production and most of the glory. But it's definitely a two-headed monster, and they've got it going right now. I think one of the more interesting battles in this one will be the Plano defensive front against that Prosper offensive line, because Prosper has to run the football. We've seen it, every time they've gone out this year. It's their results are highly contingent upon whether or not they can run Wayne Anderson, and that offensive line is for real at Prosper. It's a 6A offensive line. They're big, they're physical, they're good, but at the same time, Plano's got a good defensive front, with Hurst especially. So it's going to be interesting to see. But with you, I think I'm just kind of thinking the same way. I think Plano's just going too well right now. I think if they played like this all season long or all district long, they're unquestionably the second best team in the district, with how good they've been lately. So we'll see, man. But I think Plano's just too hot right now to go against.
The Wildcats received a 4-2 vote on the picket line. It said the three of us plus Justin Thomas siding with Plano Senior, Kendrick Johnson, Brian Murphy taking Prosper. Man, Kendrick has quite a few picks different from the rest of us this week.
He likes that, man. He's all in on the lone wolf and on the different picks, the minority picks.
It's worked to his detriment in recent weeks, as Kendrick is now second to last in the picket line. So we'll see. Hey, this got to get back on track somehow. So we shall see. And
we hope not, though.
So, that is a look at, 5 of the marquee matchups that are on our high school football coverage docket for this week. As far as live coverage goes, Devin, I imagine we all know which game you're going to be at on Friday.
Oh, yes. Rowlett, Sachse, 7 o'clock Friday at Homer B. Johnson Stadium.
Taylor, how about you?
Well, Thursday, actually, we'll both be covering games. Yeah, I'll be out at Lake Dallas Lebanon Trail at Toyota Stadium on Thursday, and then out at Kimbrough for Plano East Jesuit on Friday. Another big 9-6A matchup. Mm-hmm. Not maybe the matchup we envisioned between Jesuit and Plano East coming into the year, but still some pretty big postseason implications there. So I'll be out there for that one.
He has to win the game. He has to win the game. Otherwise, they could be at tiebreaker mercy if certain results do not work in their favor. My Thursday slate, I will be out at Allen Eagle Stadium to watch Allen take on Plano West. That's a game that will happen. On Friday, I will be out at Clark Stadium for Prosper and Plano. You can follow along. I'll be tweeting out updates all throughout the game. You can follow me along at MWelch SLM. Devin, where can folks follow you at?
At Devin Hassan.
At Taylor Ragland.
And once our games are done, the first spot you can check out our stories as well as rapid reaction podcasts, video highlights, all that good stuff is at starlocalmedia.com, and that will conclude this edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. Folks, you enjoy the rest of your week, and we will talk to y'all later. Thanks for checking out this edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast, brought to you by Performance Food Group. They deliver more than 150,000 food and related products to customers all across the country. Their McKinney office is currently hiring Class A CDL drivers, order selectors, and many other entry and part-time positions. For more information, you can visit their website at pfgc.com/careers, or you can call 214-491-3130. That is Performance Food Group, located in McKinney at 500 Metro Park Drive.